Hello and welcome to Films for the Very First Time. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, is Casey McGeorge. How are you today, Casey?
Oh, how's it going, everybody?
Going well. We're recording this, well in advance here, so got a little bit of a Halloween in September.
It's spooky season.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's been good. We're recording on a holiday weekend, so I'm excited to kind of dive into some movies, and I watched this on Friday because I had a lot of plans Saturday. So watched it Friday, like right after work. But Casey, tell us what movie we're discussing.
All right. So as we once we looked at when the scheduling and when these were going to be released, and you said this release for this episode was going to be the week of Halloween. I said we gotta we gotta go spooky here. We gotta have a horror themed element to it, right? It's Halloween. You gotta watch a horror movie in some way. Um, Between seeing what you haven't seen and what's available on streaming and various other things. And then I came up on a pick that I liked, and it was 13 Ghosts. So this movie was released October 26th of 2001. It had a $42 million budget and it grossed $68 million. Critically, it wasn't really regarded very well when it came out, but it's kind of since had a cult following in many years since. Um, Directed by Stephen Beck, he's done commercials for First Union, GMC, Chevrolet, McDonald's, and Gatorade. He's also spent years working for Industrial Light and Magic as visual effects art director for films like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, The Abyss, and Hunt for Red October, which the effects in those movies were pretty good. He's done two films, 13 Ghosts and Ghost Ship, both which came out for Dark Castle Entertainment. The screenplay was by Neal Marshall Stevens and Richard Dovidio. Hopefully, I said that name correctly. It's a story by Robb White. It's also a remake of a film released in the 60s, I believe. It stars everybody's favorite OCD detective, Mr. Monk himself, Tony Shalhoub, Embeth Davids, Matthew Lillard, Shaggy, Shannon Elizabeth, F. Murray Abraham, which kind of hard to believe that dude was in Scarface, and rapper Raw Digger in her first and only accredited movie role.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wasn't too impressed by her character, but um,
We'll get to the acting. We're gonna discuss that. We'll get to the acting.
yeah. So this was pre Shaggy days for Matthew Lillard, pre Monk
Was it?
days for Tony
What
Shalhoub. Yeah,
was it pre Shaggy?
yeah. Shaggy was 2002 is when Scooby Doo came out.
Wow. And for those who may not know, he actually is doing the voice of Shaggy now for the
Yes.
cartoons and things. Like he played the live action version of Shaggy, which let's admit that's picture perfect casting. Like that
Mm-hmm.
was just spot on. But he's also doing the voice role, which once again it's perfect. Like two thumbs up for them picking that one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love when they do that kind of thing in these things. But yeah, I guess he's still voicing Shaggy right now. Okay,
Yeah.
I know there was a movie where he didn't voice him, and that was like the newest Scoob movie, the
Really?
the CG one. He was not asked to voice him, but he's been doing all the like usual cartoons still, um, which is great. Which is great. I'm trying to think about like what I first saw him in. Let's
Scream for
see.
me.
No, I haven't seen Scream. Um,
He did a movie called SLC Punk or something about like some punk skateboarding dudes or something.
yeah, what did I know him from before Scooby Doo? Summer Catch. Yeah, I knew him from Summer Catch. the baseball movie with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jessica Biel. He's in that. And hold on, who is he in this with? He was in a movie called Dish Dogs that I've never seen, but it has Sean Astin, Matthew Lillard, and Shannon Elizabeth, who's in this movie with him.
Okay, why is like Sean Astin been connected to just about every movie we've done
Every
so
movie
far?
we talked about, it's like Six
Um,
Degrees of Sean Astin at this point.
yeah, Shannon Elizabeth was on a hot streak for a while there after the American Pie movies. She's not so much into acting right now. She's doing a lot of conservation work. Um, she was a pro poker player for a while too.
But you know how Hollywood is too. Sometimes actors get to a certain age and they're like, never mind.
The thing is, she was. I mean, let's. She was a former model as well. She's an incredibly beautiful woman,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't. I mean, it could be any number of things. I don't know the reasons why. It could be she like after the American Pie stuff, she was kind of pigeonholed into like these sexy type roles, and maybe she didn't want to do those. And which, for an actor actress to get pigeonholed into roles, especially something like that, I can totally understand. It's probably not why she got into the business in the first place. Um, I can't imagine, especially the 2000s, the levels of harassment from a lot of that as well.
Right.
Um, so, I mean, any number of reasons, but like you said too, uh, especially actresses, they hit a certain age, they either have to move to like, they go from like young, attractive women to like grandmothers. There's like no in between, or
Or
it's
they'll play like a
difficult.
mom that gets like 3 minutes of screen time or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and even
They don't
then,
get leads.
it's hard for them to picture some of these actresses in mom roles, um, or the studios don't want to put them in mom roles. I don't get it. So where were you in October of 2001?
Uh, let's see. October of 2001. I was in fifth grade, and I was probably currently reading the Harry Potter books to prepare for Harry Potter release for the first film
Oh, the
in
first one was getting
2001.
ready to come out.
Yeah, it came out in November of 2001. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we know what was probably the biggest grossing movie of 2001.
That's a good question because then like later that year was Lord of the Rings. But uh yeah, it was probably Harry Potter.
I would so 2001. I was a young
Harry Potter and the
man.
Sorcerer's Stone domestically, yes, highest
Okay,
grossing.
it's Harry Potter. I figured. Um, October of 2001. We were just coming off the September 11th attacks. I was at Fort Stewart, Georgia, as a young Sergeant Casey McGeorge, uh, newly married, wondering when I was going to get sent off to some foreign country because I knew uh, I was on tanks at the time, so shooting tanks. So I knew at some point, yep, I'm getting ready to go on a plane somewhere. It was probably about a little over a year later. I did in the lead up to Iraq. Uh, so you were in fifth grade. There was no way you were going to watch this movie.
No, I can
Um,
tell you there's no way my parents were taking me to see this
yeah,
movie.
like that's why honestly that's why I didn't ask you why you didn't see it. Like once you said that, I was
I had
like,
no
yeah, I
clue.
kind of
I'll say it this way too. I had no clue this movie exists until you just assigned it to me. When we
okay.
were looking it up at the end of last week, and I'm like, oh my god, Tony Shalhoub, Matthew Lillard, Shannon Elizabeth, F. Murray Abraham. How did I never hear of this? Um, but I
You were in
my
fifth grade.
my cousin is a huge horror fan. He is younger than me. Okay, born '96. So I message him. I'm like, hey, have you seen this movie 13 Ghosts with Tony Shalhoub and Matthew Lillard? He says, yeah, I love that movie. Right. So two thumbs up from my cousin Brandon. And he said that he's watching all the time as a kid. Uh,
Whoa, 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 whoa! I mean, I try not to knock anybody's parenting skills here, but he's younger than you. Like, what's going on in this household, man?
yeah. Well, he would watch it at my grandfather's or whatever. So I
Okay,
don't
you can
know.
get away with just about anything at the
Yeah, you can kill it
grandparents.
away a little
So,
bit more at my grandfather's. But
okay,
also, it was uh he was a big horror fan, and so are his like parents, I believe. So I think it was kind of like, he kind of grew up curious about that and was able to watch that kind of stuff. So for me, I was
Okay.
somebody that was, if my parents let me watch rated R, I probably would have told them I'm too young. I was a by the book kid.
Ah,
Um, yeah. So I was a by the book kid. I was, I never drank alcohol underneath 21. I still don't even really drink it at 21. I've only had a couple sips at my wedding, but don't, I'm a rule follower, I guess. So that was, yeah. So it was just funny that he sent me that, and I never really heard him talk about it, but he loves like all these type of movies. I know he loves Matthew Lillard too because of the whole Scooby Doo thing. So, because he grew up loving Scooby Doo. So yeah, just two thumbs up for my cousin there.
I've always been a big horror fan. So I think when I first saw the trailers and everything, I was like, I have to go see this. I did go see this in the theater. Um, I thought it was. We'll get to that later. So another quick fact. Guess who had uncredited rewrites on the script?
James Gunn. I saw this. I saw
You
this
weren't
on
supposed.
Wikipedia
You were not supposed to
Friday.
see that.
Yeah, I wonder how much he actually did here because um, a lot of times if it's uncredited, you don't change a lot. And like I know Dan Harmon, creator of Community, did
Yeah.
some uh, uncredited screenwrites on some of the MCU films to punch up jokes and stuff. Um, so I do wonder like what the goal is when they go in there's like polishing, like, oh, this thing didn't work real quick, or is it like let me punch this thing up real quick, enough that they don't credit them, but somehow still enough to make it a better film. It's kind of a weird industry.
Yeah. So like, Carrie Fisher has done a lot of that. Uh,
Yes. Yep.
she was big in that in Hollywood. Patton Oswalt, comedian Patton Oswalt, does that as well. And he talked. That's one of his on one of his stand up things. He has some jokes about that
Really.
where he does that. He does some things, and he talked about how they brought him in to punch up or to do some stuff for an animated movie. He didn't say which one, and they're like, whoa, 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 stop. He's like, we're not changing a thing on this movie. Like, it's computer generated. It cost us like $200 million to make. He's like, well, what do you want me to do? And they're like, we need you to come up with stuff that we could have in the background going on that will make people laugh. Like some dude falls. I think he even specifically says like some dude falls in like some butterscotch or something, like things like that. But it's like one of those things where, for like animated ones, they even do it there. They just look for other things. But yeah, there's a lot of people that's how they. I don't even want to say supplement their income, but I was shocked years ago when I found out Carrie Fisher did that, and
Yeah.
she was one of the go-to ones for something like that. So, um, all right, so the okay, you've seen Family Guy, right?
Yeah.
Some okay. There was a skit one time where Peter talked about he went to the movie theater and he talked about how once he sat down you can't tell when the movie starts or if it's logos for like the production company and things,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And it's funny because there's these things keep popping up, but it's also like this production company or this company, blah blah blah, in his thing. That kind of happened in this one. Like as soon as I saw that, I would like that's what I thought of immediately. The first couple production company logos, because I was like, oh, that's not part of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
okay,
Dark
never mind.
Castle one. I was
Yeah,
like, is this the start? Nope. Okay.
nope, 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 that's not it. But the movie starts. We see some a a plethora of vehicles entering a junkyard, right? Um, they come in and these guys are on a mission. Like everybody's moving with a purpose, and they're hooking up speakers, and there's wires being thrown, and all this stuff connected up. Then we see like a Model T drive in. It's not a Model T, but it looks like it. It's close enough. It's an old car from like the 30s. And I don't know if maybe this is another Scooby Doo tie-in, but when we first see F. Murray Abraham's character come out of that car, it's very
Mhm.
cartoonishly like it's cartoonish. It's like a cartoon villain.
Yeah, what I would say about the opening of this movie is very cartoonish opening of the film. Lillard's hamming it up. F. Murray Abraham's kind of hamming it up. Uh, and yeah, it's a very like I was like, what am I watching in this first scene here? Because it kind of just pulls you right into it. Like, I thought it would start with the Tony Shalhoub character and stuff like that.
Okay, so the scene after this, where we first get introduced to Tony Shalhoub's character, where we find out he's
Yes,
married and he's got this beautiful family, and then there's a
during the
fire, and his wife,
credits.
yeah,
Yeah.
the credits are coming on, and his wife gets trapped in the house, and his wife passes away from the fire. I mean, I think they made a good choice by starting with the action and kind of getting you hooked into the movie. But I would have figured they would have started with that portion first to get the tragedy and the sadness in there. But no, they went straight, like you said, hamming it up. Um, so they're looking for they're looking for a spirit in this graveyard, and it's one of 12 ghosts that F. Murray Abraham's character has to capture, or he wants to capture. They get interrupted by a husband and wife duo who are violently and vehemently against what they're doing, basically enslaving these souls. Um, and the husband says something about a 13th ghost, which kind of makes Matthew Lillard a little weirded out. Right? He's not sure what's going on because he was only contracted for 12.
Yeah, yeah.
They say there's only he wasn't told anything about a 13th ghost. What's going on? Um, we find it in this scene. We also get that Matthew Lillard's character has some psychic abilities. He touches the ground. He finds out. One of the things he says was, "You said this guy only killed 12 people. There's 40 bodies in this in the junkyard." And I guess Murray Abraham tells him, "Well, he's been busy in the afterlife, so he's killed 12 people before he was taken out, and then consequently, people that have gone there afterwards have succumbed to him as well." He touches F. Murray Abraham's character, gets some glimpses, but Abraham kind of knocks his hand away and tells him, "Don't get too curious." We They start spraying blood all over the place, which I don't get, but hey, whatever. It's a horror movie. You don't really need a lot of great explanation for stuff. Um, you also notice all these people are wearing these weird glasses with like lights on the side. That enables them to see these spirits that are around them. And we see the spirit in this one. This guy is a character. This is the there's out of the 13 ghosts, this is there's out of the 12 ghosts that he needs to capture. I'm sorry, give me one second. I should have this open. This is they're going after the Juggernaut. Um, so he is like the boss of the series, I guess you would call it. He ends up killing a whole bunch of this guy's workers, in very bloody fashion. And then the lady's husband gets killed, and then F. Murray Abraham's character gets killed. We get our intro credits. So let's talk about the acting in this movie. I've seen this movie many times. It wasn't until today that I watched this movie and I was like, what is going on with the acting in this movie?
Yeah, I would say I think the best acting in this movie is from Tony Shalhoub. I think he is the heart of that. Like, I think he acts pretty good. There's times I see a lot of Adrian Monk in this guy, but I mean Matthew Lillard's character is way over the top acting,
Over the top.
over the top.
Rod Digger's character isn't very
Yes,
good. Also over the top. There's a lawyer we get introduced to later who
he is
just
the
is
biggest offender
a
of
pure
the over the top acting.
over the top, pure sleazeball.
Yeah.
Um, But I mean, he's a slimy lawyer. Like that's the character he's supposed to give off. He did very well in that. Weird thing to get bothered by. I was bothered by his teeth today. His
Really?
teeth were too like white and too big. Like I don't know, just it was too much.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and especially just with his sleazy lawyer character, it was just too much. Um, yeah, the act they this goes up. This is almost up there with some Jim Carrey overacting in some scenes. Um, I get why Matthew Lillard does some of it with his character, where we learn that basically he can't touch anybody because if he does, he gets flooded with like their memories and
Premonitions and
images of their
memories. Yeah.
life and the possibility of seeing how they die. Um, but they're not very consistent with it in this movie because there's plenty of times where he is touching other characters and he doesn't get that, or they touch him. But there's also a few times where he specifically tells people like, "Don't touch me," because that kind of gives him those visions. So I get it, like they're acting in a movie, and later in this house they're in some very tight quarters, so you can't help it. But it's just kind of inconsistent, and that kind of took me out of it a little bit as I was watching this today. Like a scene ago, he just said, "Don't touch him." Now he's got his hand on her back. Like, what is going on here?
He can touch. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, I think that is a little inconsistent, and I think also like I don't know if it was really established well enough that like I should believe what he sees is 100% gonna happen. I guess like I didn't know if there's a way he can prevent the stuff or not, and so there was a bit there where spoiler, right, when they try when he sees his death, right, when he's
Yeah,
saving uh what's Tony Shalhoub's character's name?
Mister Criticos. What is his first name?
Arthur.
Arthur Criticos.
Yeah. When he's saving Arthur and stuff, I'm like, the way he reacted to it didn't make me think he knew for sure it was going to happen until he decided he would go with him, I guess. But like, I don't know, that I found very confusing on like what exactly with the psychic can we believe? Did you already spoil that you're gonna kill this character off? Like, is there no way it can be prevented? Type of thing. That's what I was curious.
We'll see. Now we're getting into the weird aspect of seeing how something is going to happen. Does that allow you to prevent it from happening, or does that just give you the information of what's going to happen? And that gets us into alternate timelines of like, if you change something, maybe in like now you're looking at alternate universes. This wasn't supposed to happen, and any number of things could end up coming from that. Like, we can go down rabbit holes on this all day. Like, and not I'm just saying like that's one of those things. But I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, but also I think it's more of like he sees what is going to happen.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't think that, right? Like, I thought that, right? I was like, okay, he's seeing the future here. Then I'm thinking, the way he's reacting to that, where he knows he's going to die, he didn't act like he knew he was going to die the rest of the time. Until he decided to leave with Arthur. Like, I felt like the rest of the time up till then, he was still acting as if he can die at any moment, I guess. So I was that's where I was just a little confused on that. But regardless.
So at the same time, I'll say like, if he saw this vision and knew that's how he was going to die, right? And this is like, it's his vision. He has a better grasp on his powers and his abilities than we do. And if he sees this and feels like this is going to happen, right? Like, I can't change this. I can't alter the course of this history. Like, this is what will happen. Is there any sense in fighting it at that point? Like, I don't know. I mean,
well, I don't know about fighting it, but I'm just like, I feel like I would feel invincible until that moment happens. Like, it didn't seem like it was really like at times he still seems super scared about things that maybe he wouldn't have to be, you know.
Well, I mean, okay, just because, well, and he's still, when they show the vision, he's still kind of in good shape. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
just because he's still gonna be alive up until that point doesn't mean like bad things can't happen. Um, so we get to the Criticos family in their very small apartment. Um, Arthur is a English teacher. They live in a small apartment. They have a babysitter, Maggie, who was played by Rod Digger, who, like we said, she decided acting wasn't for her. And in all fairness, like it does take a lot of work, and I'm sure there were some very, very long days and things doing this. Um, his daughter, Shannon Elizabeth, who plays Kathy, uh, Bobby, by his son, who has an obsession with death, and he's like 6 years old. Like when he's making like the first version of a podcast on his little tape recorder talking about suicide rates are up. Uh, Family's had a rough time. Um, like I said, they're in a very small apartment. I'm trying to figure out how he's affording to pay for this babysitter and nanny and Maggie, but I don't know. Maybe there's some helping from the state because of his wife's passing. Maybe there's some things going on. I don't know. Lawyer shows up, sleazeball, tells him, opens up a computer and plays like a video from his late Uncle Cyrus, which looks like it was made in the late 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah, it's like
Like,
a QuickTime video, but it is very intuitive where like it'll become full screen when it needs to show something
yeah.
and then like go back to like shrink down and or it closes and then it opens back up again for Cyrus to say something.
The only thing missing when he started that video was either you need to update Real Player or QuickTime to the latest version.
Yes,
Because
yeah.
back in those days, that would always happen when you would go to watch something. Like, QuickTime has a
And it
new
would take
version.
forever to download the
Yeah.
update because the internet was slow.
QuickTime is now has version 3.6.2. Please update at your earliest convenience, and it blocks the screen, and you can't watch the video till you update it and all this other stuff. That was the only thing missing to make it a real period of that time. Um, Apparently, Arthur's family believed that Cyrus had just wasted and squandered the money, the family fortune. Great line. His daughter asked, "We have a family fortune?" No, he squandered it.
Yeah, yeah. You know
Fair
what
enough.
though? Okay, did he squander it or not? Because I feel like this whole house with the ghost thing is the biggest waste of time he you could ever do. Yeah, I could have spent this money a million better ways. Just saying.
But you're not also trying to get the eye of the devil opened up so you can see everything that's going on in the world and be the most powerful person in the world, or
I
the eye of hell,
guess,
or
but
whatever. I mean, if I mean, you're a much simpler man than Kritikos is
Cyrus.
there. Cyrus is. So he Arthur or Cyrus was killed in the junkyard. So the lawyer, he's the last living relative. He gets this house and everything. So they go up to this house. It's this massive glass house. Now I will also say, not only is the acting meh in this movie, some of the writing in this movie is pretty meh. You have Tony Shalhoub saying "Nobody throw any stones." I get it's a dad joke,
I
but
liked that. I actually liked that line. I
you
actually
get
liked that line.
Miss Maggie doesn't do windows. Nah. The best line in the whole movie later on is Dennis asking Arthur, "How do you lose your kids in a glass house?"
Yeah.
And Tony Shalhoub just turns and looks at him like, "You son of a bitch." But it's a good point. Uh, but they get there. The entire house is made of glass. The walls, the floors, seal, like everything is made of glass, which is just kind of weird. But it is what it is. It's filled with all these like historical artifacts and these little trinkets and doodads and pirate ships and various other little things. It's beautiful, but it's also one of those like, wow, what is this?
So my biggest question with the house, okay, is who finished it, right? So Cyrus is dead at this point while capturing the 12th ghost. But
Yes,
all 12 ghosts are in the house. Did after all that crap happened, Dennis still followed through with the contract and made sure all 12 are in this house? That's where I'm a little confused.
we will get to that. There
Okay.
is an answer for that. It's obvious, but you probably just skipped over and it didn't occur to you. But we will
Well,
get to that.
it's either Cyrus did after faking his death or his lover, the girlfriend.
So they get to the house. Obviously, Arthur tells everybody, don't touch anything and don't move. So what's the first thing that happens when the lawyer takes him away to go sign some papers? Everybody scatters and they have to go through the house. Arthur brings up a good point. He's like, look, I'm a teacher. He says, like, the taxes alone on this, like, are going to be ridiculous, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
which I can't imagine. It doesn't say what state this is in. Or maybe it does. I don't know. But I
Good
can't
question.
imagine. I can't imagine the taxes on something like that are going to be cheap. Like,
I assume this is like, you know what it feels like? It feels like Northeastern.
it feels like an upstate New York type thing.
Yeah. It doesn't say though.
Um, they start exploring the house. Everybody gets separated. And at some point, they end up in the basement where the ghosts are captured. Now, they have these. Oh, at the same time, when they get to the house, Dennis, Matthew Lillard's character, is playing the role of a electrician or from the power company, because apparently this house is drawing so much power it cut power to like 5,500 people in the neighborhood. So he needs to get in the house and look at the circuit breakers in the house. Does this make any sense? Not a bit. Do
Yeah.
we just have to go with it for story's sake? Sure. Another thing we have to I just thought of, how did they not hear like the center of this house until now? Or until later on? Like there's turbines and there's gears and everything that are kind of going on under there. The
Well, it doesn't happen until he lifts the bag of money, right?
I don't know. Maybe, but
Or actually, hold on.
he does say soundproof. He does say that the glass is soundproof.
It starts working when they unlock the door. But then like the rest of the stuff that sets everything off is when the lawyer picks up the briefcase.
Yeah, so as the kids get lost in the house, Dennis goes into the basement. He's got one of these weird, or he's got his regular glass on. He finds his way to the basement and sees that Cyrus has containment cells. So all 12 ghosts that he has are in this house, in these little containment cells locked up. He later explains that there's Latin engraved on all this glass, and these are containment spells that kind of keep the ghosts at bay. And basically, the spirit world has their own set of rules, and they have to obey what's these spells and what's written on them, so they can't cross over on the other side of these things. Once again, for the sake of the story, sure, we'll go with it. He has some freakouts because, as he explains later, when he gets within a certain distance of some dead beings, he starts having spasms. He starts going into like seizures and seeing things, and he kind of gets the gist and realizes what's going on. He gets scared by a couple of ghosts. He runs upstairs. He runs back into Arthur and the lawyer and explains the whole thing to him. He tries to explain what he does in these big words, and he's finally like, "I'll break it down for you. Ghosts. I hunted ghosts with your uncle.
Hmm.
One, why didn't you just say that in the first place? Like, there's no reason to say you're in a spirit reclamation or all this other stuff. Like, you're not repossessing trucks here. Like, you're hunting ghosts. Just spit that out. Two, I had a ghost with your uncle. Goats? No, ghosts. I had to rewind that because that tickled me. I chuckled a couple times. Uh, the lawyer warns him because apparently he's been harassing the law firm for months. Apparently Cyrus owed him some money. Plus, he's kind of against now what's going on, even though he helped capture all the ghosts. Uh, they have some back and forth at some point. Eventually, the lawyer just disappears. He's gone. In a glass house. Nobody knows where he went. In a glass house.
Yep.
He didn't make any noise walking in a glass house. I don't get it. But okay.
Yeah.
He makes his way to the basement. Uh, Cyrus set this up perfectly. So he goes, he has his own set of glasses. He makes some remarks to one of the ghosts about her body. Goes, he picks up this massive briefcase full of money, takes it off of leather, which, as you said, starts everything going. Cranks start turning, wheels start turning, gears start shifting. The outside of the house literally starts shifting, and the glass gets covered up, and then shades are coming up and down. Glass inside the house starts moving around and changing, and rooms are changing, and various other things. The lawyer gets trapped with this same ghost, and eventually he dies a horrible but befitting death.
Yeah. Yikes. Split in half by the glass door closing.
And inadvertently, there was a great line layer of, did the lawyer split? Yes, yes, he did. See, now if Tony Shalhoub would have said that, I would have said, okay, I'll give you that dad joke. But no, it came from Robb. But so now Dennis and Dennis and Arthur now are trying to find his kids. They can't find them because once again they're not where they left them, and the house has started shifting and moving, and they can't get out. So the adventure starts. They have to find their way through the house in order to find their kids. At some point, they catch up with their daughter and the babysitter because they lost their small son who's riding a scooter in this house. Once again, they're in a glass house. They have no clue where he is. Okay. So they're searching. They end up in the basement. Dennis is still going on about ghosts and nobody believes him. Eventually, they split up into two teams because it's a horror movie. You have to split up. Like, you can't just keep everybody together in a horror movie. Or, tying it back to Scooby-Doo, you have to split up in Scooby-Doo, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
As he's explaining this to the babysitter, he gives her the glasses so she can see the ghost. So now she's a believer. She finally understands what's going on. They get chased, blah, blah, blah. We keep cutting back and forth between them and Arthur and his daughter. At some point, she has a pair of glasses as well. They're in the hallway. He doesn't really believe what's going on, and she starts getting thrashed by one of the ghosts. The ghost she gets thrashed by is
The
called
jackal, right?
no, I think it was. No, it's not her.
Someone with the box on the head.
Yeah, you know
The
what?
jackal.
I think it was the jackal. Who was a serial killer. He was horrible. So Tony Shalhoub kind of. So he sees this happening in front of him, that there's this mysterious being slashing his daughter, literally pulling away from her. He still doesn't believe there's ghosts in the house. Enter our lady from earlier, Maggie. No, not Maggie. I'm sorry. Kalina. the ghost hunter from earlier, or she's trying to help these spirits, so she says. Um, she has to tell his daughter to give Arthur the glasses so he can see what's going on. He finally sees that there's ghosts in the house. He doesn't believe it. If you're Arthur, what is going through your head at this point?
I mean, I don't know. I guess you have to believe it, right? But what I'll say here is I think it takes entirely too long in this movie for them to just give the glasses to Arthur so he can understand what's going on. Um,
And there
but
always seems to be like one person without the glasses. Like that just
yeah,
doesn't
because they
make.
only have like two or three.
And then the lady, and then Kalina pulls out another pair out of her bag later. Like, really? Why didn't you just pull that out of your bag and give it to Arthur in the first place?
Right, right. Yeah, I don't know. What would go through my head here is uh one how one I'd be trying to get the hell out no matter how I can, right? I'd start throwing stones to get out of there. But um I don't know. I think at that point you have to, if you see it, right, you have to believe it, and it's just like, all right, let's get my kids and get out of here. Um and also, how do I stop them, right? Like when you have the jackal tearing up your back, when he starts going at his back at some point, it's
Yeah.
like, if I'm somebody watching around, like, how do I even stop? Do I just push a ghost off of him? Like, how do I stop a ghost from
I
attacking
can't see him. I can't
somebody?
even see him.
Right. Yeah.
Two, my mind would be messed up for life if I lived through this. Because I'm always wondering what is around me right now. Like, I would have to find a way to keep a pair of those glasses. Because I would need to know what is around me at all times. Like, there's no way you can go back to living a normal life after something like this. The fact is, you probably end up in a mental institution because your brain wouldn't function. You're going to be telling everybody what happened, and then you're going to be telling everybody that there's ghosts all around you at all times. Who the hell's going to believe you? Like,
I would just give him my glasses, I
like
guess, if I had a pair
at
still.
some point you're going to end up committed. Like, there's no way
Yeah.
you're not taking a padded wall vacation there. Eventually, we catch up with Bobby. We find out that Arthur's wife, Bobby's mother, is one of the ghosts in the house.
Yeah,
She's
because she
one.
warns the boy not
She's
to go
telling him
downstairs.
to not go in the basement after he kind of gets knocked out, which head trauma at that age and that's not good for the rest of his life. Like, side note, I listen to a ton of podcasts, including a lot of like true crime ones and serial killers and murder ones. It is ridiculous the number of serial killers in our history who've had head trauma as a child.
Mm,
A lot of them, and I'm talking a lot of the big name ones too.
really?
Richard Ramirez, like a lot of them. So, hate to say it, poor Bobby here. I think he's on the path to becoming a serial killer because A, head trauma at this early age, not good. B, everything he saw, nobody's gonna believe him. They're
At
gonna
least
think
his at least his family will.
his family will, but he's what, 6 years old, 7, somewhere in that range,
Yeah, probably
right?
like 8 or something. I don't know.
Like, they're just gonna think it's some kid who has overactive imagination and needs to leave that in the past. No one is ever gonna believe him outside of his family, and at some
Right.
point, his family's gonna end up in a mental institution. So now he's out there by himself. Nobody believes that he knows there's ghosts around. They try to kill him. So yeah, I think poor Bobby's on his way to being a serial killer here. There's gonna be podcasts written about this guy down the road.
He'd be one of those that's like, I just loved seeing the ghosts. I wanted to make more of them in the world, so I killed
That's what I'm
everyone.
saying. Like it's not gonna end well.
Especially, we know he already had a fascination with
With
this stuff
death, yeah,
beforehand.
dude, he's seriously on a killer. He's seriously on his way to being like one of the top 10 serial killers. Like, he's gonna have a cool nickname too, especially if he doesn't outgrow his
Ghostmaker. That's what his name will be.
if he doesn't outgrow what his voice issue there. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that makes it even more creepy. Um, they're going through the house. Kalina and Dennis, everybody ends up meeting up at some point. Kalina and Dennis have their words because Kalina brings up this is Dennis's fault. He helps Cyrus capture all the ghosts. He has to break it to Arthur after Kalina brings it up that ghost number 4 is his deceased wife. He gets
Hmm.
punched in the face for it, rightfully so. Kind of get that. Like it's not an absurd reaction under the circumstances. Um, Eventually, Kalina breaks out the facts. The house is this massive box. It is uh, what is the name? The name I can't even get into the name. It's out there, but they're all from the dark. There's 12 ghosts that are needed in the house from the Black Zodiac. The firstborn son, the torso, which quick note was actually played by a man missing 2 of his limbs.
Hmm.
He was actually missing his legs, so they just did some special effects for his head and everything. But that actor was missing his limbs. So good job for inclusivity in the early 2000s. The Bound Woman, the Withered Lover, which is ghost number 4, the Torn Prince, the Angry Princess, the Pilgrimess, the Great Child, the Dire Mother, the Hammer, the Jackal, and the Juggernaut. At some point, when all 12 of these spirits are released from their cells, they will be called to the center of the house and they will open up a portal which will allow them to see the eye of hell or something of that nature. And it allows whoever controls it the power to see the past, the present, the future, and be an all knowing being and be the most powerful person in the world. Where we get the 13th ghost is it is explained to us that the 13th ghost is a failsafe. That if someone out of pure love sacrifices himself, it kind of is a failsafe and will short circuit the system and cause it all to fall and will close the portal. So Arthur and Dennis decide they're going to go find his kids one last time. We find out Selena has like 50 pounds of explosives in her bag that she's just been running around with. She's thrown her bag a couple of times. Like, this is not how you take care of explosives, lady. Like, come on.
Yeah, not very safe.
No, safety is not her number one priority. They get the bright idea from Arthur that they can take one of these panes of glass and use it to walk behind to get to where they're going. Now,
Yeah, because it has a spell on it.
while that is a great idea in theory, the practicality of that, man. Like, can you imagine how much that glass has got away? Especially if it's not, if it's shatterproof, it's bulletproof. Like, it's fairly thick, it looks like. Like, they look like they were struggling to move along with that thing as they were going through the house.
Yeah, and what happens if they're just like behind you?
You got a choice to make which way turn the glass. Um, they're going through the house. They run into uh, one of the ghosts. Weird shenanigans ensue. Cut back to Kalina and the babysitter Maggie. She leads them to the center of the house, where there's this massive set of gears and widgets and all the controls for the house. And this is where we see Cyrus again. But Cyrus isn't a ghost. Cyrus is alive. He tricked us. We got bamboozled and hoodwinked. And we get
Yep.
bamboozled and hoodwinked a second time because Selena's on Cyrus's side now. She knocks Maggie out with this massive book and brings in
Yeah,
a bunch of spells and things.
this twist I felt like just came out of nowhere, like not in a good way. Like I was just kind of like, what?
Well, one of the things I read, originally they wanted Maggie to be the one to turn, but it didn't feel right, didn't sit well. So like the next best choice they had now, like, because I mean, there's only outside of the ghost, there's really only like 6 characters in this movie. It's a very small cast.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you have the extras in the beginning who are setting everything up. You have the people playing the ghost, but that's it. Like, it's literally just these people in this house. As Abed would call it, it's a bottle episode. But so I didn't see it coming. Did it make a ton of sense? Not really. Can I go with it? Yeah, I guess. Like, we got to kind of move the plot along a little bit. So yeah, she's actually with Cyrus now. Um, Eventually, you know, they they get cornered, and Dennis sacrifices himself for Arthur's sake. It's a scene he kind of saw of himself earlier.
Dies a horrible death, by the way, getting split almost in half, like his back broken.
Oh yeah, he has a run in with the Juggernaut.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh yeah. He has a run in with the Juggernaut, and the Juggernaut was not playing around. The Juggernaut is a rather massive individual. Um so quick bio on the Juggernaut. Horsebreaker Mahoney was born disfigured and outcast his entire life. His mother abandoned him at a tender age. Excuse me. His dad put him to work in the junkyard using his unusual strength to crush cars. After his dad dies, he goes insane. He takes motorists and hitchhikers, tears them apart with his bare hands, feeds the remains to his dogs. After several of the murders, he's arrested. SWAT team shoots and kills him after he broke free of his handcuffs. His body and his spirit stayed in the junkyard. His body's filled with bullet holes. He kills intruders to the junkyard. That's where we get his body count is in the 40s. Yeah, so his run-in with the Juggernaut, not good. Eventually, Arthur ends up back in the middle of the house. He sees, after all the ghosts are called there, he sees the 12 of them around his son and daughter in the middle of this whole shifting, which I think those things are cool where you got all those circles moving around each other in different ways. But they're there in the middle.
Yeah.
He still believes at this time that he's got to, that if he sacrifices himself, that will kind of shut everything down. But he also sees his uncle Cyrus. And as he's going through the math in his head, it's like, okay, my son and daughter are real. Counts to 12 ghosts, and he kind of puts it together in his head that, like, hey, he's not a ghost, he's real. So he takes his glasses off, confronts Cyrus. He starts a little fist fight with him. He gets a couple good licks in, and then Cyrus just whips the hell out of him with his cane.
Yeah. I thought it was a funny scene here. I at first was trying to figure out what he was counting, because I'm like, it should be obvious to you that he is real. But this scene kind of plays out a bit for him to count all the ghosts and assign them their names, in case anybody forgot.
Yeah.
And then, to remove the glasses to remove all doubt that he's real. Because we did see him before, too. We saw him when his son looked up and saw Cyrus at some point, but we thought he was a ghost.
Yeah, and his son had the glasses on.
Yeah.
And it was still in the beginning, so we
Actually, did he? Because the glasses fell off at some point. Should we have known at that point already?
Well, no, the glasses fell off like after he kind of got scared and ran away. I don't think it was here.
Oh, okay.
But I think he still had the glasses on while he was riding his scooter around.
Right.
So
right.
kind of that kind of helped give us the impression that
he was a ghost. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, like I said, we did just see him die not that long ago.
Yeah. So what was his plan here? So how did he pull this off with the fake dying in front of Matthew Lillard here with the fake glass?
I don't get the body. Like how he pulled that off. I don't know unless
he had like some sort of like
like it was decapitated.
Yeah, but he had some sort of like I guess makeup he had, like prosthetic that he had that made it look like he was cut into his neck, and I guess he just rested the plate there, but
Or unless he had a fake body and like kind of scooted off somewhere.
yeah.
I don't know. But we find out Cyrus was alive the whole time. And this is where I say it was a little obvious earlier that of who built the house. Cyrus faked his death but continued building the house because he had the financial wherewithal to do that.
Yeah.
He was capable of doing that. I don't think Matthew Lillard would have done it. Kalina might have helped him, but I don't know. I'd like to know when they kind of got together because she was very against him in the beginning of the movie, and there was just no.
That's why I felt like the twist was out of nowhere. He's the reason her husband or whatever dies, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there's
there was nothing tying those two together, so I don't get
no.
how those two hooked up. And then I think it kind of intimated they were lovers as well and everything. I don't get it,
Yeah.
but okay. Like money will do that thing to you. Money will do things for you, I guess.
Yeah, so it
Um,
makes me wonder, was she faking all of that with her husband, like where she was against him,
was she
or
playing the long game? Yeah,
yeah.
it's possible. Um, Rod Digger was only knocked out, so she gets up, starts DJing because there's some sounds playing that are calling the
Yeah.
ghosts there.
This is very
Um,
2000s.
starts messing with levers and pulleys and things. Um, the ghosts end up coming out of their trance. Because Arthur captured it on. Yes, no, I'm sorry. Cyrus is the one who captured all of them. They end up turning on Cyrus. He dies a horrible death. They go on free from the spirit world. Um, Arthur jumps in, saves his kids. Movie ends, and then we get Maggie at the end, yelling and screaming. She quits.
Odd ending. It just really ends right there. It's like boom, credits, do, and you're like, what?
Okay, here's the thing. Now, if this were made nowadays, there might be like a
Stinger at the end.
yeah, there'd definitely be something. There'd be a ghost left over or something, or like Matthew Lillard's. Dennis would be like
Yeah,
they'd have like a spin-off series with Dennis and he'd be around, or
yeah, because
because
Dennis was the 13th ghost after all of this.
yeah. Oh, well, I did
He
forget to mention
sacrificed himself,
he sacrifices himself for Arthur, and then we see Dennis
and
later
we see
as
his
a
ghost.
ghost
Yeah.
talking to Arthur, telling him to go help his kids and everything. Um, it was a movie.
It was a movie.
It was a movie.
Um,
I
let
don't
me
think
pull
there
up my
were
notes here.
any memes that came out of this.
No, like I said, I just unless if it was something I'm not aware of, because like I just heard of this movie, so at least like with the Travolta meme and stuff, I knew it was Pulp Fiction. I knew it was
Yeah,
Travolta. Like, yeah, I can't think of.
I even tried to Google like 13 ghost memes. Nothing came up.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so a couple quick notes. And this is something I thought of. So this movie looked phenomenal, right?
Hmm.
Except on HBO or Max as it's now called, because I didn't want to put the disc in I didn't feel like getting up, and it just I don't know why. Like there's ads on. Like I thought I had the ad free version, but it still kept
Oh,
getting
really?
ads, and
Yeah, I
it
have
kept
ad
getting.
free.
I could have swore I had ad free, but it kept getting ads, and it would just pop up in weird random spots, and it's like, damn it. So Warner Brothers and Dark Castle Entertainment, the company behind this, originally planned to release it in 3D, and we're going to carry over the gimmick from the original 13 Ghosts in 1960, where they needed glasses to see the ghosts in the film. They eventually scrapped the plans.
That was a real thing.
Yes, apparently it was.
We'll have to watch the original sometime.
I don't know if I can watch the original. I might check it out for curiosity's sake, but because I think it's in black and white and
Yeah, it's not gory either. Like this, I don't think you get the lawyer death. But one thing that I found very interesting, I just want to say this. I pulled up the article on Wikipedia about the 13th Ghost from 1960.
mm-hmm.
And uh, the person that bequeaths the house to their nephew in this is called Dr. Plato Zorba. And the nephew is named Cyrus instead.
Mm.
of Arthur. So it's almost like maybe we can head canon it
It's a
as
continuation.
it's a continuation. Cyrus is now crazy and he bequeathed it to his nephew.
So I think now, I think you could probably do something a lot better with some of the visual effects. Um, and with the ghosts, I kind of did wonder the same thing when this first came out, like because they made the glasses such a big part of this movie. Why they didn't have something in the theaters with the glasses and seeing the ghosts? And in 2001, like maybe the technology just wasn't totally there. I get that, um, but I think it could have been an interesting hook on it.
Yeah, it's kind of like it would be kind of like it'd be interesting to watch this movie without seeing any of the ghosts if you don't have the glasses because I'm
Could
wondering
you,
what that movie would be like. It's
could you
kind of like
even
go ahead.
could you even really watch it though? Like
I
you
don't
can
think
watch it, but
so.
would you be able to get anything out of the movie
Mm-mm.
without seeing the ghosts
No,
at
because
some
it
point?
loses the very little heart this movie has, which is
The mom.
Arthur with the mom, like his wife, and them saying goodbye to each other there, and like that is a you lose that, which I think is the big thing, but also you just lose like the character of it in the sense of all of the very distinct ghosts that helped make this probably become a cult classic.
Yeah.
Um, you would lose all that. So uh, that'd be curious. It's almost like if you went to see like Clue in theaters and they had like the three different endings
Oh yeah,
split
and
upon the theater.
you don't see until like 20 years later that wait a minute, there's
There's another ending.
or like here's like yeah the full vision of it with all the endings. Yeah, that can make for an interesting. All right, but on a more interesting note, just last month, or I'm sorry, in August of this year, because it's last month for us, 2 months ago, as we watch this, or as you're listening to this podcast, Dark Castle Entertainment announced they're making a 13 Ghost series. It's going to be an anthology series. That's going to each episode is kind of going to be a background, a story on each of the 13 ghosts, which I think is a
Yeah,
great idea. And I think for like a Netflix or a Hulu or a Peacock or something like that can work.
so I also looked into this too. So it's not greenlit yet. It is something they're shopping around. I guess we'll see how it goes, but I do wonder. I think that could be more interesting for people that are fans of it, but also I think it opens it up for casuals that haven't watched the movies because
Yeah,
you can just follow those little stories of the anthology of each ghost, and then if you find out there's a movie, you could watch the movie. Um, so I do think that's interesting, but I just wonder, like, with the state of strikes going on here,
is this going to be a casualty?
yeah, some of these things end up being casualties. Disney just scrapped a whole show they had filmed.
I was gonna say,
HBO's
wasn't it already done too?
yeah, Disney scrapped Spiderwick Chronicles, which sucks because I loved those books growing up, and Paramount shopping it because Paramount made it with Disney or something. But you're getting a lot of this type of stuff where things are just becoming casualties of the strikes. Um, so I do wonder if this will actually happen or if there's an actual buyer and what
We
type of budget it can be done for, I guess.
we might have more casualties too because they're talking about trying to tie in writers and voice actors from video games
Mm-hmm.
into the strikes as well.
Yeah, they might
Um,
vote a second strike on SAG after for video games.
um, so also a side note, like I said, I watched this on Max. I do own this on disc. The disc does have some great special features. One of them, F. Murray Abraham narrates like a 20 or 30-minute thing that goes over the story of all the 12 ghosts.
Mm.
And actually, it might even tie into what the 13th is supposed to be. So one, F. Murray Abraham has a great voice for that. It is a great, like it's a great voice. Um, and it's a cool because it gives you the backstory about like, so for instance, the Hammer. He was a blacksmith in the 1890s. He was falsely accused by some people of stealing. Uh, uh, so they killed his family, and then he went crazy, took his blacksmith's hammer and beat to death a bunch of townsfolk, and then they in turn came back, and that's how he has a bunch of spikes in him because they tied him to a tree, like cut off his hand and put a bunch of railroad spikes in his body, blah blah blah. So he's got a right to be angry. Kind of get that. But it goes into little backstories on each of them. One of them was like a baseball star in the 50s, and he got into a drag race. His opponent messed with his brakes, and he died in a horrible car accident. One of them was a young girl. She was very vain. She kept getting plastic surgery. Eventually had some botched plastic surgery and died that way. She was also in some very abusive relationships, so on and so forth. But so that hopefully maybe something like that is on YouTube because people rip that stuff and throw it online. But if you've been interested in the movie and maybe want to hear a little more about these characters, you can listen to that. I sent you a little article that kind of gave you a brief overview on them because they don't really go into anything in the movie. It's only like an hour and a half. They don't have a ton of time. So they just give you the names.
By the way, the first hour is quick in the sense of I was like, how are they wrapping this up in 30 minutes? Like I paused it to go get a drink or something and come back, and I'm like, I got 30 minutes left, and he's just now learning about the ghosts. It was something like that. I was like, what is going on?
At some point, they're like, hey, we got to move this along.
Yeah, I'm like, what is going on? But yeah. So I wanted to share this too. I just read that there is a Blu-ray release too from 2020 that apparently has brand new cast interviews and stuff. So if people did want to find it, you don't have to go looking for the DVD. There's new stuff on the Blu-ray. I want to add this too. I think what I'm going to add every week now here is let's go over the Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb scores, and all that stuff. So
yeah,
before we rate it,
scored very high.
Before we rate it, we'll do that for each film. So that way you kind of know where we land compared to the rest of the world.
Okay, before you get to scores, one quick note. Matthew Lillard, by all accounts, is a fantastic person. I just saw a couple things, because as I'm looking through for stuff for the movie, people who have had interactions with Matthew Lillard at various Comic-Cons and things all over the place. Not a single bad account on this dude in any way, shape, or form. Everybody has said the guy is awesome. He enjoys his fans. He's a sweetheart to people. He enjoys taking pictures with his fans. He enjoys signing autographs for these people at Comic-Cons and various things.
I think I read James Gunn is that I think he's talked up Matthew Lillard, and James Gunn usually won't even hire people for his movies nowadays if he feels if he's heard they're assholes.
Yeah.
Because he wants to work with good people. So, there you go.
But so just if you are a fan of Matthew Lillard and you are in the area and you find out he's going to appear at one of these conventions around you, from everything I've seen, it is totally worth meeting him because it is a great experience, and he's just a fantastic person, which is not something you hear about with some people in Hollywood. But
I thought you were going to say originally, just want to say this, Matthew Lillard apparently hates this movie or something. I thought you were going to go into
I don't know.
I've
seen some people. He's talked about some movies with his fans and everything. Obviously, he has a big following from Scream and Scooby Doo, but just the fact that he's
Summer Catch, right?
Yeah. So just like I said, if you get the chance to if he's coming to a convention near you and you're like, I don't know if I want to go, it might be worth it just to get the chance to meet and interact with Matthew Lillard. All right, so before I give my review, what do Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb have listed for our movie team?
Again, this is Rotten Tomatoes, I want to clarify for people, 2001, not as many reviews out in the world. So nowadays you get probably about 200 to 300 for major blockbusters. This is 94 reviews, 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. By the way, horror films don't usually do good on this anyway.
You
Okay.
typically have to be a fan of horror films to really go see them. So
Audience score with 250,000 plus ratings,
wow,
49%.
it's a big jump though.
Just under half, right?
Still
I
a
mean,
big jump.
just under half. On IMDb, it is a 5.6 out of 10, and that's 91,000 people voting for that. And Metascore, which takes like, the general score from critics. This only has 24 critics on this Metascore, is a 30. All right. So Casey, where do you rank, or what do you, out of 5 stars, for clarification for everyone, we use the 5-star system here. What is 13 Ghosts for you?
All right, so I've enjoyed this movie many times. I've seen it probably too many times to count. Like if when Halloween season comes around, it's one of those go-tos I'll throw in. One, I can kind of mindlessly watch and maybe do something else because I've seen it enough. I don't have to pay total attention to it. But I gotta say, today, I kind of looked at it in a little bit different light. Like I said, visually, I think even Roger Ebert agreed. Visually, the movie is amazing. Like how the house looks and
The effects, the makeup, all that stuff. Yeah.
Especially for 2001. Like, this is fantastic. Looking back at it now. The acting, and this is, I don't know if it was meant to be purposely over the top, like a B movie type thing, or what's going on, but the acting, today I was watching it, that's why I was like, what? I don't remember it being this hammy. Like, I don't remember Matthew Lillard being this over the top. I'd have to give it probably 2.5 out of 5. Before I watched it today, I probably would have given it like a 3.5, not gonna lie. But after watching it today, looking at, like I said, the over the topness and looking at some things that just, as I'm watching it now, like, don't make total sense and everything, like, 2.5.
2.5 stars for Casey. So this is our first horror one that we've talked about on here. I'm not, people may not know this. I know we've kind of talked about it a bit on air or whatever. I'm not a big horror guy. I can watch, like, I really enjoy, Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix, and like those type of ghost stories. So this one, Tony Shalhoub, Matthew Lillard, Shannon Elizabeth. I'm like, all right, I'm in.
It's got some things you're interested in.
Yeah,
it's got
yeah.
some pieces in there.
Yeah, it's got some pieces in there. All together, though, not something I'm interested in. I gave this a 1.5 out of 5 stars. The opening scene was a big turnoff for me. The random spraying of the blood, the weird F. Murray Abraham character of Cyrus, all that stuff. I was like, what is this movie? When we kind of got into my favorite parts, the opening credits with finding out what happened to Tony Shalhoub's character, like being introduced to them, and then like the fire and like seeing where he's at now. I really liked that. I thought that was really cool work. And I really think the best part of this movie is Tony Shalhoub as Arthur. I think he's the one that, probably the only one that really knocks out the park, I think, for a lot of his acting. His scene with his wife at the end, is very powerful in what he can portray. But altogether, I felt like the movie's kind of a mess. Short, and I shouldn't have to go on Wikipedia and read about the 13 Ghosts background. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's cool that they have that stuff, but it's also like, doesn't seem that important then if I need to look it up as an ancillary material. Overall, I didn't find it that scary or anything. The story is not really about that.
A couple jump scares, but not a ton.
Yeah, the part I liked the least is probably when the lawyer got split in half and they actually show his like first half slinking down. I was like, that's kind of really gross. But yeah, I gave it 1.5 stars, above Pulp Fiction on my list here, but below the Goonies, which are the 3 I've watched and rated so far. So Um, so yeah, so that is 13 Ghosts. Okay, so now it's my turn to pick something. We're going into November. I've been debating this whole episode in the back of my head as we've been discussing the movie. What's next, right? What is next? What's a movie that I can pick? And I think I'm gonna go with. I think I'm finally gonna do. I think we're gonna go Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. We're gonna start the journey.
Alrighty.
Make
You
sure you
start
check the
stretching
length of
out.
that movie, yeah, before you sit down at breakfast at like and watch it. Um, it is. Let's do this too. It is released 2 months after 13 Ghosts. This movie is a 2001 like December Christmas era film, and based off of a book written around the time of the 13 Ghost original movie. Look, I'm just tying these things together here. Um, but yeah, I've really enjoyed this movie. I was just telling a story about this yesterday that as a kid I was dumb, right? Like, I mean, I was a smart kid, but I mean, like, I look, internet wasn't like fully available yet. I had to do dial up and stuff, so I couldn't research as much as I like. So when people are talking about, are you going to go see Lord of the Rings? And I'm like, that Harry Potter knockoff? No, I'm not going to see that.
You will start a war saying something like that.
I had no clue as a kid. Like, I thought it was like, you know, one of these things they were trying to match. I was like, look, Gandalf, like, he looks like Dumbledore. Um,
You are
but
lucky you are alive right now.
obviously, Lord of the Rings was written way before Harry Potter and is, partly what inspired Harry Potter. So, um, then I watched it. We got it from my mom's friend on VHS, and it was two VHS tapes to watch this movie. And I fell in love with it. And then I went to the theaters for the second and third one, and um, yeah, so I'm really excited to see what you think. Casey, are you any fan of like fantasy-esque films or anything?
Okay, so before I answer that, let me ask you one question. I own this on disc, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
on a Prime Day sale, and it was one of those. I think it was like $35 for the whole set on disc or something. And it was one of those like I kind of felt I had to have, even though I've never watched it. Don't judge me. But I know there are at least two, if not more, versions of this movie.
Yes.
Which version of said movie is the one to watch?
For the sake of your bladder and your sleep schedule, I'm gonna
Well, I
go
mean, I'm
with
here at home. I can always pause it and go to the bathroom. Like I'm not.
True. I've actually never seen the full extended version, so I'll leave it up to you, Casey. If you want me to be on this journey with you and watch the extended editions for the first time, I will.
Well,
Or we can go theatrical.
my next question, which I know I said one, but what is the difference between the regular and extended version? Like what like that was my only other question. Like, is there a major difference? Is it just like maybe a couple other scenes or something? Do they add like 48 minutes to the movie, which takes it to 3 days worth of viewing? Like,
I was gonna say it's more than a couple scenes. Is hold on, let me see. Extended edition Fellowship. Okay. How long is this movie? Damn, I don't have like a quick answer to this, so I'm gonna have to edit this part. But let me pull it up on because I own both versions on digital as well, I think. Um Okay, here we go. What is this? Is this extended?
okay, so I'm looking to see something on Movie Web. The amount of material added back in the extended editions varies from film to film. Uh, Despite theatrical cuts of the Fellowship of the Ring and Two Towers being essentially the same length, 30 additional minutes were added to Fellowship, while the Two Towers had about 45 minutes of new content.
All right, so there you go. About 30 additional minutes for the first film on the extended edition. It's 228 minutes, which is
It's
three
almost 4
hours,
hours.
almost 4 hours long, 3.8 hours.
Okay, so let me see. There's a Reddit thing from 2014. Let me see if there's a.
I'd probably say for a first time viewer, it's probably better to go theatrical. That was the version cut down to show the masses.
I'm just trying to see if the story wise, is there something?
No, no. Story wise, you're not really missing. What happened is they ended up filming a bunch of stuff, obviously, right? So they were pretty. This is controversial. They were pretty faithful. People don't really think they were that faithful, but I mean, like they filmed a bunch of stuff. They had to, of course, cut certain things or move certain things, but you know what I would say is for people that are more hardcore, they'll kind of lean extended because you'll get more moments. But like the movie still makes tons of sense, like extend like regular edition, um, which is let's see, Fellowship of the Ring is how long? 2 hours and 58 minutes for the theatrical.
Hmm. I I think I might have to text you on this one
Okay.
when I decide. I don't know yet. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know yet because either way, like it's looking like I'm gonna have to put 3 to 4 hours away regardless, right? And I'm gonna have to like settle in for one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that, but I just don't know if there's. I might have to do a little more research and see what most fans say, or for like a see if there's something that says like for a first time watcher,
Yep.
is there a
Yep.
difference and is there a better one to watch?
All right. So Casey's going to research. What I'm going to do is once I get his answer, I will edit that answer into here. And you, the viewer and listener, will know which one to watch as we get ready to watch Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring for Casey's first time.
Okay, so to continue on with this, if I am correct, originally the plan that we had when it came to series like this is we're going to continue on with the series for your next several picks, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so
So I'm locked in.
you're locked in for like a three
3
pick
weeks.
period. You're going Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and
Return
Return
of
of
the
the
King.
King.
Yep.
Just okay. So we know what those. We know what your next three movies are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can deal with that. I don't think I could marvel it like I did my Infinity Saga a couple years ago. But
Yeah, it
yeah, I
might be
can.
best for you to space them out too, so that way you can digest it. You don't get confused on which scene is in which movie when we're talking about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so I'm locked in. But I'll reiterate those picks each week that we pick, so that way everyone can remember.
There's at least one meme for next week that I know's showing up.
Oh, which? Oh, now I'm curious.
One does not simply walk into morning.
Oh, of course, yeah, the big one.
One does not simply watch all three Lord of the Rings movies back to back to back.
Yeah, there's tons of memes from these actually, so that'll be a segment within itself for sure. But yeah, so that'll wrap us up here. So Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, um, extended edition. You can follow all of our stuff in the show notes below or in the YouTube comment, YouTube description below. Have a great rest of your week and Thanksgiving, not Thanksgiving, Halloween holiday, and we'll catch you next time.